Go ahead, sir.
My name is Don Hardy, and I'm kind of in the middle of this water mess, what I call Texas water theft, rule of capture, water marketing. Because I grew up in San Antonio. My family's got a ranch in the hill country outside of Bernie, which we've had for the better part of a century. And now I live on a ranch in Lee County. So I've spent 50 years enduring the foolishness of saws, and I know they've gotten a lot better in the last decade, but they've pulled some real boneheaded things. One of them was buying into the water salesman's pitches, and they bought hook, line, and sinker. And now they're stuck with it. And San Antonio doesn't need the water, at least not yet, but they're paying $50,000 a day whether they get the water or not. So San Antonio's taking it, which is another subject. We don't know where, you were talking about water profiting and excessive profiting. We don't know where the water for Vista Ridge, where the money's going. And they tried to do an audit, and Saws got out of it legally. But y'all could require an audit, and I would love to see that, because I'd love to know exactly what's happening and where it's going. Anyway, they decided, although they insisted they needed the money, they decided to sell it. But in the hill country, we don't want the water either, because it's too expensive. And we're pretty confident that in the hill country, when we do need the water, San Antonio is going to need the water, and they'll shut off the spigot. So Governor Greg Abbott smacked them down when he rejected House Bill 1806, and that was to allow them to resell outside their prescribed zone. But now Saws is back at it. They're in with Bernie and the GBRA, and they're lobbying all over once again. Am I okay?
We tried. I'm sorry. Keep. So, I'll ask you a question.
I'm not.
You have
I'm not,
more testimony you need to do.
Yeah,
That's the easy one.
I didn't know what the answer was.
We had higher orders.
Today, I live in Lee County, where our spring-fed creeks are drying, and enough is enough. I'm a lifelong Republican, but I feel kind of betrayed, because this isn't right. The Lost Pines Conservation District y'all were talking about is great. They've supported us completely, but the districts to the north of us are allowing overpumping, and that's what's affecting our water in our area. More and more outsiders are coming in and demanding their piece of the pie. They want to make money off our water too. So Lost Pines is kind of overwhelmed, and you were talking about lawsuits. I don't want to get involved in lawsuits, but a lot of them are filing lawsuits, even against the board members of Lost Pines, filing in federal court, so they may not have sovereign immunity. I'm not sure about that. But the lawsuits are flying now, and more people are after. Everyone's after our water. So my question is, if individuals can sell the water under their land, why can't I keep the water under mine? That's what's not fair. So I ask you to please put the brakes on this water grab. We're only 40 miles from here, and I can't help but wonder what we can do to get y'all to take decisive action on this issue. Don't let them trample on the rights of rural Texans, because they're quickly depleting our water.
Senator Eckhart.
A couple of quick questions. Just you had mentioned concern that when San Antonio when everyone needs the water, San Antonio will need it too, and they will shut off the secondary source contracts on the common carrier pipe.
That's exactly right. That's the concern of the people in the hill country. That's why we don't want San Antonio. Well, that and the fact that it's very expensive water, but that's why we don't want it. That's one of the reasons, yes.
And it is clear in the Vista Ridge contracting proposal from its beginnings that it would only sell water along the common carrier to sources to demand other than San Antonio if they contractually agreed that Vista Ridge was a secondary source and could be terminated.
Yes.
Also, wasn't there a piece of legislation that prevented the suing of GCD board members in their individual capacity?
Yes, it was Senator, pardon me, but it was Representative Syrier's first piece of legislation.
And that did pass?
I helped draft for it.
So that's good. Just wanted to double check that. Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nancy McKee. I'm a rural landowner in Lee County, and I'm in the middle of a water battle that has caused a major water supply emergency for rural landowners, that being the aggressive aquifer drawdowns in Carrizo-Wilcox. The 2022 water plan includes 145 recommended projects that call for 50,000 plus acre feet per year of additional production. Continually, we are told this is sustainable. The aquifer will recharge. Well, guess what? That's not happening now, and I have no confidence it will in the future. So I will tell you what is happening to me. Since April 2020, when Vista Ridge came online and began pumping massive amounts of water out of my aquifer, my water level has dropped some 80 feet. I've had to lower my pump 100 feet, and I'm only speaking for myself. What I'm also speaking for is on behalf of over 20 rural landowners on my county road alone who have experienced the same. And this is the result of one water project. According to the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District, there have been over 200 water well failures since April 2020. More than $400,000 plus have been paid in mitigation costs. This includes the Post Oak Savannah GCD, and all of this is Carrizo-Wilcox. I have read the interim report for this committee dated December 16, 2020, and the only reference to individuals' rights and protection is in the last 2 pages of 61 total. There are many impressive pages regarding GAMs and DFCs and GMPs, but none reflect real time and real losses that we have incurred. I implore this committee to take into consideration the above Texas citizens and growing numbers who will join the ranks as more pumping continues. Respectfully, I ask this committee to consider soberly the cost, destruction, and loss we citizens are experiencing, for we too are we the people. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir. Okay. Today. Appreciate you, ma'am. Let me speak to you. You were committed, either one of you, to have a seat real quick. I'm gonna ask this question. It has no answer. So, you're a landowner.
Be careful, these are my constituents.
No, I could tell they're my peeps, man. I think they would fit well up in District 28. You're the landowner. You got water underneath your property. Vista Ridge decides to come to you and want to put their facility on your property and offers you a check for your water. What do you do with it?
They offered.
You did, and you
They
said
offered
no.
me, yes.
Okay.
I subsequently got a letter from,
And I'm not trying to pry, but I'm trying to get in my mind, everybody, and I'm gonna die on the hill for landowners. I will. I mean, it's just kind of my nature. It's a bigger principle to me than our country. It's what makes us unique. You can own something, develop something, fail with something, make money with something, but it's yours, right? So I get that, but I'm in this. Quandary right here, to where I got landowners that have done that right on a common use, commodity.
in my particular case, I can't remember what the specifics were, but I know we would have, first of all, we would have gotten a check up front, and we would have gotten a whole lot of money if they actually put a well on our property.
Okay.
But it scared me. I was real concerned about, and we have county water. We get water through.
So not an economic conversation for me. I mean, well, it is an economic, but not the details. But if the money were right, would you have been compelled? And it's not personal, but I'm just trying to, that's our landowner right? It's mine to do as I need to do. And
It's kind of like if I asked you, you want to sell your house, and you say, I'm not interested, and I say, well, how much?
I got
Just
you.
name a price. How high do I need to go to make it worth
I hear
it?
you.
So I guess if you went high enough, I'd say, wow, I'm getting the heck out of this county.
And please understand, it's not meant to be. I'm just trying to, I think I know where my landowner people are. If it's right economically, I'll do it. It's when we leave people behind that didn't get that compensation.
Yeah, could you
It's a
do that to your neighbors?
So I think that aspect does weigh in on the conversation individual. I mean, my folks don't look to their neighbor and say, I don't care what happens. But I think so. You've answered my question in that if we can find some economic transfer vehicle that would effectively not leave anybody behind, then it's a different conversation, even though you got to recognize you're not going to have any water to live on, or you're going to have to move, or
I'm not worried about the environment.
Right.
I'm worried about what it's going to do to our environment when our creeks and streams dry up.
I can appreciate
But Senator Berry, I'm not as nice a guy as you. I'd like to know who my neighbors are that did sign the contract.
Well,
I'd love to see them published in the
Yeah,
paper.
and I can't do that from a, it's our right. Now, on this foreign ownership of property, I've got some solutions that doesn't actually require disclosure of the buyers, but, on a front end, but you got to protect that, right? That's just a negotiation tool. It just is. And, because people are going to go to their doors. And in our society today, the crazies get out there real quick. So I didn't mean to keep you.
No, I have another comment in that vein, though.
Sure.
Because many of the people that were landowners around me have sold their water rights. Okay? They've told us that it won't affect our neighbors.
Isn't it the truth?
Well,
Well,
if you believe that, I got a bridge.
you're pretty naive if you
Yeah,
believe that.
Can I add to
Senator
that?
Colcord.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you want to go?
Did you-
And
were you
briefly, and it may be where you're going, Senator Colcord. So I noted, Ms. McKee, when you were giving your testimony, you said the cost, the destruction, and the loss. And so my question is, if this is entirely a profit-based transaction, private profit-based transaction, at some point, our rural communities will be so depleted of this resource that their industries won't be able to survive, like the cattle industry,
I get
or the other agricultural industries, or the tourism industry for these areas. So that's my concern.
Well, you raised the point I make all the time. It's not the industry. It's not the oil and gas. It's not the cattle. It's the people that choose to live in those areas. And let's be frank, I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But it's a rugged. It's a little less comfortable than you can get in the urban areas. It's the amenities. It gets cold and it gets hot, but you go out and work those fields and you work those rigs. It's the people that leave, and then the industries die if you don't have people.
And I
So
agree
it's-
with you.
It's that resource.
What I'm
It's that
responding
value.
to, though, is our
No.
GCDs are supposed to establish a baseline below which we don't dip, so that
Well,
these communities will continue to thrive at that baseline. But if they're oversubscribed, as we know the Post Oak Savannah is, if everyone were to call down their water rights today, there would be a run on the water bank, and the Post Oak Savannah desired future condition would be blown sky high. The presumption is all those water rights will not be called down. And this is the state of affairs that we're in. We're in we as a state have not created a regulatory regime, and I know we're on different sides
Right.
with regard to
The
our
Republicans on the
comfort
dais
level.
recoil.
Right, the comfort
No.
level with regulation. But if we can't achieve the standard because we have failed to give them the regulatory tools, then the water plan is written on sand.
so the ultimate fix, and it doesn't fix the bigger issue about water access. If you're a private landowner and you get compensated and you choose to sell that resource, so be it. We've got a situation where not all private landowners benefit when those transfers occur. The bigger conversation is we're going to run out of water at some point. And if we do it this way, we've depleted a community. It's been stated 100 times before it's time. And we haven't given it time to find alternative industry segments or economic value. And that's real, and it's going to happen. But the least aspect of this is private properties 101. If you take it, you pay it. And if you pay for it, at least you put the money back into the community to find it, reinvent itself. I was at an opening today this past week in Dickens, Texas. You know what their new industry segment is? One of the largest Bitcoin mining fields in the country. It's 55,000 miners under a multi-thousand, 100,000 feet facility or whatever. And it's going to have about 30 ongoing employees.
It doesn't take water,
So,
but it does take energy.
It does, and it's up there to cheap energy. We have lots of wind. I'm from there. You can tell we have a lot of wind. Senator Cocorse?
Let me just speak to the contracts. You know, this was started in 1999-ish, certainly in the Burleson County area where water marketers went out and started signing leases. I was running for office and got the phone calls about, you know, hey, I just got like a $25,000 check in my mailbox. And, you know, for a lot of people that is, you know, eye-popping, especially, you know, when you talk to a constituent who was out of money and she'd been praying and that was an answer to her prayer. And so when you look at that way back 22 years ago, no one knew what this meant. County judges from both the Gulf Coast aquifer in that region and the Carrizo-Wilcox aquifer is what we call it, but you know, we know it has several stratas in it, would meet. And I mean, of course, you know, dividing them up into two aquifers and the different approaches in groundwater district. That's why as a freshman, I carried in 2001 and knew frontwards and forwards and backwards chapter 36 of the water code because of the threat that it was to, at that time, House District 13. And so when you look at a lot of these contracts, they're pretty old, not all of them, but a lot of them, and securing those over a period of time, kind of in the dark of night. I mean, you know, just, I mean, there were some public meetings, but not really, not public meeting. I mean, the water marketers would have meetings and kind of explain, but it was really, this area was on the forefront of water marketing in Texas. So, you know, Senator Eckhart, I'm not one for more government control. I think that the tools are there with what we've got. I'm not sure we're exercising those, and I'm not sure that science is driving the answer on some of this because of, as one of our witnesses was talking about, the Carrizo part of the aquifer and how it's being drawn down and affecting these more shallow wells versus the Simsboro. And, you know, there's some real sweet spots in that Simsboro. You can get over to Robertson County. It's just, that is the mother lode of that aquifer. And nobody ever talks about it. I think Brazos County went and gobbled that up pretty quickly. Just saying. And so there's a lot, and I mean, I'm just doing this all off no notes. This is all off of memory because that's how it was really branded into my memory when I saw it happening before our very eyes. And I didn't know that the voters would allow me to have represented them this long or to move to another chamber to have their voice. But the voice is louder and stronger on we really have to understand what we're doing here. And it's as I predicted way back then, impacting the little guys.
And may I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate so much you allowing us to bring our plight to you. Because for so long, we have been lied to, not going to affect your neighbor. We have been mocked.
You're overreacting.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. We had Chicken Little film. We just all kinds of things to belittle us, to discredit us, to show disdain for us. Because we were fighting, because we're losing our water. This is not survival of the fittest, folks. We're all in this together. And I thank you for listening to us, finally.
Thank you guys for participating.
And don't forget for a second that these groundwater districts are not they're allowed to be voted on by the Texas legislature. They're not, when I said I carried legislation, I carried enabling legislation so that the people could decide whether or not they had it a water district. Listen, my home county voted it down. And when I say voted it down, 85-15. I mean, I always say spot the dog and get 30% of the vote on a ballot. Man, I mean, they had signs everywhere that said, vote no, save your water. And so, way back when, it was very, very confusing. And I think the Gulf Coast aquifer is very different because of subsidence issues and not quite, the Carrizo-Wilcox is very prolific, can be very prolific if it's managed correctly. And the deeper parts of that are certainly, I would use the word very wealthy with water. And other parts of them, maybe there's a day when we can say should be used for more domestic agriculture, smaller agriculture wells, and the other should be used for the marketing part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Alan Powell and Lauren Ice, that's the last two I showed.